All right. Well, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're at. Thank you for joining us for our OKR workshop today. And on behalf of the entire Valiantis team, as well as my colleagues here, we're so glad that you were able to join us. So before we kick it off into today's content, I want to quickly introduce our speakers and then we'll get started. So my name is Brianna Hopper. You may have seen some emails come through from me or seen me before, but I'll be our MC today, making sure we stay on schedule, help get some of those questions answered, and give some giveaways away today as well. So today you'll be hearing from Sam Ayers and Jacqueline Lorin, who are our experts on OKRs, and they'll be bringing a wealth of knowledge and have proven track records that help our clients achieve their goals. So with that, you may be wondering why you received a copy, of John Doerr's book, Measure What Matters. So let me introduce you to today's content, objectives and key results, or OKRs. So today's event is supposed to be super interactive. So share as many questions as you can in the Q&A, and we'll answer as many of those as we can live. But of course, if we can't get to your question today, I will be dropping emails in the chat throughout the session, and definitely feel free to reach out to our experts to get some one-on-one help. You may have also noticed that this event is being recorded. So if you need to jump early, we totally understand, but you'll be getting a copy and a link of the recording afterwards. So you can definitely go back, check it out, share with colleagues, whatever you'd like to do. So today our intention is to provide useful information on OKRs, as I said, as well as some practical strategies on how you can manage them within your Atlassian suite. So before we get started, I do have that announcement that we have some giveaways today, and these are going to be laser-etched Valiantis branded Ray-Bans. So we'll be giving 2 of those away today, so make sure you stay tuned and see if you won those. All right, now that we're done with the introductions, I'm going to pass this off to Jacqueline and Sam. Are you guys ready?
You bet.
Ready.
Perfect.
All right. Welcome, everyone. And as Brianna said, good morning, good afternoon. Sam and I have not done this. We were just talking about it. It's been a year. So we're excited to do this again. And Sam and I have had the opportunity to set up several portfolios for customers over the years. So this is something that's pretty near and dear to our heart.
Yeah, for sure.
So like Brianna said at the beginning, a lot of what we're going to talk about today is based on the Measure What Matters book. Of course, there is a wealth of information out there, but John Doerr was just one of those people who really paved the way, one of a couple, of course. And now I think OKRs are much more popular and really help guide a lot of companies. So if you have not had the opportunity to read the book yet, I would highly recommend it. It's really inspirational from not just how to use OKRs and why you should use OKRs, but just good leadership. And one of the reasons he points out why OKRs are important is to align your people around a common vision. And you'll hear this a lot throughout our couple of hours today, but really it is about transparency. It is about aligning your people, and he does a really nice job of driving that home. So what are OKRs? I think Sam and I hear this a lot because they get mixed up with KPIs. Yeah. There's a lot of ways to measure. So let's start by level setting on what exactly they are. So the objectives that you set or your leadership sets, we want, like I was just talking about, we want these objectives to inspire our people and to show where we want to go. We want to aspire to do blank next quarter or next year or in the rest of 24. And how we know we're getting there, how we know we're making progress is through the key results that we associate to that objective. So we're going to go through a lot of examples today, but if you think about it, like if we said that we want to increase sales in Q4 over 20% from 23, then we would know that we are getting there by saying, okay, our key results are we are going to reach out to 100 clients a week, because those key results get us to where we want to be, and they are smaller and measurable so we can track that progress. I mentioned at the beginning that Sam and I get questions a lot on OKRs and how they differ from KPIs. So let's address that. OKRs are more aspirational, where KPIs are going to be more keeping an eye on how things are running day to day. So let me give some examples here. Where in OKR we talk about we want to do this in fourth quarter, we want to do this in 25, and we want to push ourselves. And we are making these outcomes, they're flexible enough where we can still be agile, and all we care about is the outcome, but how we get there can differ based on market conditions. And there's something to align around, like we talked about. KPIs are more, usually when we work with clients, we tell them that KPIs are perfect for your projects. You can see whether your project is being successful or giving you the outcome you want based on some KPIs you associate with it. So a good example would be like ROI. I know that's a fan favorite for the project. So, right. So are we making the money that we want to, or we assumed that we were going to spend X amount of dollars building this, but how are we tracking to that? Are we over? Are we under? So these are some key performance indicators that are often associated with projects. You also can see this, one of the examples here is departmental performance. So a lot of our teams will have something like an SLA, but if you think about that as a department, how quickly does our team get back to customer problems? How quickly do we engage? How quickly do we solve them? On average, how quickly do we work through our tasks? These are things that are more nuts and bolts day to day. So let's talk a little bit more about the importance of OKRs and why we're going to spend time on them, talking about them today, and why you should spend time with your company implementing them. So again, back to the idea of that focus and alignment. We are trying to rally the troops, for lack of better terminology, around an idea or an aspiration or a goal that we have. And part of that is making this really transparent and showing everybody and sharing with everybody, this is our goal as a company or a department or a team, and this is how we believe we get there. This is also part of the collaboration. We will talk about how with OKRs, we want everybody in the organization to show how they can align and how they can scale up. That's going to be an important piece as well. This is where my company wants to go, and this is how I think I can contribute to that, how I fit in the picture. And that also leads into the understanding on an individual part as well, because the CEO has very different vision and day-to-day conversations than I have. But I know that when he says something, that this is his goal, I certainly can align my weekly, monthly, quarterly goals to what he has put out there as an end line for us, endpoint. So let's talk about how we create those powerful objectives. We obviously want them to be significant. I mean, these are not just goals of, I want us to do slightly better, or I want us to do 5% more. And maybe in the market conditions, that's all you can hope for. But we want them to be something that pushes our teams, that really inspires the team or the department or the company to do better and really push themselves. We want them, so that plays in with inspirational as well. We don't want to just say, hey, you know what, let's just kind of keep doing what we're doing and maybe add a little bit. We want people to be inspired and really start to think dynamically about how we can do differently. We want them to be concrete enough that they make sense. They should not be, everybody should understand what you're asking when we write these objectives. They're going to be action oriented because we want to be somewhere, we want to do something, we want to align as a company differently than where we are today. And then, of course, we want to align with our company vision and where we want to go, what our goals are, where we want to be in the market. So let's get a little bit deeper into this. So we want them, when we write these key results, we want them to be a little bit different than the objectives. We need them, because remember, the objectives are inspirational. It's where we're going. It's what we want to achieve. But our key results are how we get there. So for those, we need to be a little more specific, and we really need to make sure, like when you write your quarterly or yearly goals, however your company does it, you need them to be closer to the SMART goals. You need them to be specific enough that we know if we are being successful, if we're making progress, and if we've achieved them. So we need them to be verifiable. Like I used to tell my teams when they asked, what goals should I, can I have these goals for my yearly goals? We would talk about, well, how do I know if you're successful?
Yeah.
You just telling me that you learned something, what does that mean, right?
Right.
So it's the exact same guidance that we would use for our key results. Make sure that they're time bound and that you can measure them more than anything, because we just need to know we're making progress. So we can celebrate it, if nothing else. Okay, let's get into the OKR examples. Let's start off with a bad one, because I've written plenty of these in my life. So the objective would be make our bank more popular. And our key result would be get more likes on social media, increase the number of accounts, and make customers happier. Fundamentally, we're going in the right direction, but this is not an OKR. This is not a good OKR. It is an OKR, just not a good one. So why? It's too broad. I don't know if our bank is more popular, and what is that measure of popularity, right? Are people talking about it?
Right.
Social media,
Right.
So we don't know if we're going to be successful here. And we have non-specific key results too. Again, with being quantifiable. I don't have numbers here, so I don't know increasing the number of accounts. In my mind, when I wrote this, it might be by 10%. But when we were talking about it originally, what our end goal as a company, we should probably be talking about 20%, right? So we just need to make sure that we're aligning it and we're setting very clear goals for ourselves. So this is the same example, but with more numbers, with getting more specific, with us having clear outcomes. And when we talk about this with clear outcomes, you can see that we're now putting in time. So brand awareness, we're not just becoming more popular, we're saying that we want to increase brand awareness and our customer base in Q1 of 24. And this is how we know if we're getting there. We grow our social media engagements by 30%. We know what we're doing, how much of an increase we want to see, and we have time to know whether we're targeted or not. Key result too. So we're increasing new checking and savings accounts by 20%. And then compared to last quarter or the quarter before. Okay, really clear. Improve customer satisfaction score by 15%. So that's something, I don't actually know what this is based on. I mean, that would probably be good to align on. Is it a survey? Is it an NPS score? But, it's still good, right? It's still something here. So we want to make sure that's 15% better. And then measured by the standard customer side. Oh, there we go. See, I just never
was
part
there.
out. Yeah, it's there. It's there by the end of Q1 of 24. So again, we have everything we need to know whether we're on track or off track. And really, this is just restating all of that, actionable, time bound, getting much more specific.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's say you're intrigued and you're like, great, how do I start implementing OKRs? Start small.
Mm-hmm.
As with anything, it's going to be hard at first. The tooling, Sam is going to take you through so many good examples today. you're gonna have the tooling down pat. But how it works for you and your company and your teams, that might be something that you go through a couple of different options to figure out. So start with a pilot program like we suggest to anyone trying anything new. Start with a couple of OKRs. You're going to need top-down support. So you're going to need leadership's buy-in on this. And actually, hopefully your OKRs are originating with your top leadership. But you're also going to need buy-in from the teams because, like with all things, the more that people are able to offer their opinion and make themselves a part of it, the more bought in they're going to be.
Yeah.
So again, as with all things, we need to set them, we need to evaluate these OKRs, we need to learn from how last quarter went or last year went, and then we need to change based on feedback that we're getting. And then, most importantly, in my mind, is celebrate. So we need to talk about it and we need to celebrate when we do have these wins because that's how we all learn, positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
The other thing is make sure you're educating your team. Your team may not know what OKRs are right out of the gate. So we need to help them understand what they are, how they align to it, and answer any questions that they might have. Defining company OKRs, again, this is starting at the top. So we need to make sure that our leadership understands what OKRs are and helps us define our first batch and going forward. And this, I think, is really important, the cascading. So I think we've all worked for organizations where your CEO says something and that's great. That's what they want for the company. And then you might be, 6 places away from the C position and your boss says, okay, how are you going to contribute to this? Fundamentally, that's exactly right. But make sure that your people are finding this meaningful and that they understand, even if we have to break it down a little bit further for them, that they understand how their role is going to specifically align to what we're being asked to do. Because that is so important, that understanding. And they're going to come up with a better idea than what you have, at least in my position. When I've asked my teams to do this, they certainly have.
Yeah.
So that individual contribution piece, in my mind, is just so incredibly important. And it's going to bring a lot of flexibility of thought there as well, because the CEO can't possibly have their finger on the pulse of everything. So you need those individual contributors who are very close to the problems we're solving on their team to really help us understand what that looks like.
Yeah.
And again, that feedback loop, right? Whether it's positive reinforcement, whether it's just showing that we're all paying attention. We need to do those regular check-ins. We need to show that this is something that we are tracking, that we care about, that we're all paying attention to. And then just keep adjusting along the way as we learn more. All right. Well, before we go on any further into the tools, I would like to stop and check to see if we have any questions and maybe do our first giveaway.
Yay.
Yay.
Hey, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and do this giveaway and see if any questions pop in before we move on. So thank you guys for that first section and helping us understand what OKRs are. But with that, As everyone's been waiting, our first giveaway for a free pair of laser-etched Valiantis Ray-Bans goes to, drum roll, so thank you.
Hey, congrats.
Congratulations.
You'll be receiving an email from me this week with additional details on how to get that prize. Now, if you didn't win this first pair, don't fret. We still have one more to give away, so make sure you stay tuned. And with that, I'm going to send it back to Jacqueline to kick us off with some more content.
Thank you so much, Brianna. I'm jealous. Hopefully I'm the winner of that second pair of glasses. I don't know if I get to be put into that drawing or not.
I don't think you do.
I don't think I do. Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it seemed rigged.
Yeah, right. I know. I work here. I need those classes. Anyway, I digress. Well, folks, it's so great to be here with you. Jackie, that was an awesome introduction. And I was getting excited as Jackie was talking about OKRs, because I want to challenge this group as we dive into these tools to be thinking about a lot of the things that Jackie was talking about as we're going through the features. Specifically, words like collaboration stuck out to me. Goals should be measurable, setting dates. Visibility is another word that I was thinking of, to the organizational wide objectives. And so I'm hoping that as I'm going through the tools, that you guys see those themes in the tool set that are all ultimately upholding kind of the stuff that Jackie was talking about just now. So that's the hope. But that's why I get excited about these demonstrations, because I'm like, yes, the tool does this, it does this, it does this, and does it well. Yeah, I can help with that. So with that, let's go ahead and I'm going to jump to the home screen of an app that's becoming much more well-known within the ecosystem, and that is Atlas. But just before I jump into Atlas and another application called Jira Align, I just want to say there are multiple options within the ecosystem to track OKRs. And specifically, I'm going to focus on Atlas and Jira Align. And then at the end, I can mention at least a couple of other options that you might be interested in. But those are going to be kind of the two main focus points for us today from an application perspective. So with that, let's start with Atlas. And this screen that you're looking at right now almost kind of sums up Atlas for me as somebody who uses Jira every day, or for us as consultants that use Jira every day, and for folks like you that are using Jira every day, because it really, I kind of am viewing Atlas more and more as like the glue that holds an organization together within the Atlassian suite of tools, and denoted by the fact that a lot of times when you're granted access to a Jira instance, Atlas is the first thing that you navigate to. You may put in the URL and think you're going to go straight to Jira, but actually you get redirected often to Atlas. And I think that is Atlassian saying, hey, this is kind of the main hub. For those of you that were in data center or have been in data center, it's kind of almost your first landing page of your dashboard or your default dashboard. Atlas is kind of becoming that. And so you have this your work section. I'll just talk about this very briefly, and I promise we'll get back to OKRs. But it is relevant to the overall idea that Atlas as a tool is very ubiquitous within the tool set, within the Atlassian suite of tools. And then ultimately goals as a result are very much interwoven into everything, which is what I hope to demonstrate today. But on this homepage, you have your work section where I've got different Jira organizations that I can dive into on a whim here. And I say specifically organizations because I have my demo organization that I'm a part of, but then I may be part of a completely different org. And I can jump into that organization right here from the homepage, which is kind of handy to have. And then you have your frequent places that you visited and then some recent work that I've viewed and or worked on down here. So this is often where you land with an Atlas just right out of the gates. And then you get a couple of things, project updates and goal updates, which we're going to drill into more specifically. But again, this is kind of your main dashboard within Atlas here, or you could call it that.
That's really handy.
Yeah, it really is. I use it honestly day to day for just navigating Jira as a whole. So it really has a lot of value even in just that front alone. But let's talk about Atlas pertaining to just goals in general and then objectives and key results. So if you're not familiar with kind of the goal aspect of Atlas, it is a tool that allows you to connect your teams across your company to organizational wide goals, very much like what we were just talking about and what Jackie was referring to. It helps, or Atlas helps teams stay in sync as a result, because it connects them to their apps and the work wherever that work is happening within the Atlassian suite of tools. And then Atlas's ultimate goal is really to kind of answer or help teams understand what they're working on, why they're working on it, answer the question of how it's going, and then ultimately determine what success looks like. It helps stakeholders, so those maybe in the leadership roles, kind of be in the know on a high level for how their organization is progressing towards achieving the OKRs or just goals in general, without getting bogged down with the nitty-gritty details of Jira project level tasks. Conversely, though, it allows teams to see how the work they're working on aligns to the broader goals of the organization. So again, harkening back to what Jackie was saying, we want our folks envisioned for how their work is actually tied up to these key results. And it's important to mention at this point, though, that even though this is an OKR event, we're talking about OKRs, Atlas doesn't subscribe to one goal framework. And as we know, there are several. The way that Atlas works is very free-form and open, and ultimately allows you to use it in a manner that is best for your organization and whatever goal setting and however you want to manage that. So that being stated, though, I'm going to make an attempt, as I've mentioned, to demonstrate how it can be a vehicle to track OKRs. And to do that, let's jump into what Atlas refers to as a project. So I'm going to go to the project menu here. And I'm just going to stop here for a minute and talk about projects, just so we have some more context before we drill in deeper and deeper here. An Atlas project is not to be confused with what we know a Jira project is, or what you may know a Jira project is. While Jira projects are where teams, as we know, track their work, Atlas projects represent what Atlassian refers to as a stream of work being completed with a designated owner and a targeted completion date. So that's really it. That's how open this really is. Atlassian suggests that an Atlas project is more than 2 people working on something for more than 2 weeks. And again, just further pointing out or further exemplifying that this is just very wide open in its usage. And to that end, within our demo site, we have several different project types, all ranging and varying in scale. So for example, we have a very simple like office build out project where somebody's opening a new office and need to relocate a few different departments. Great. We have a marketing campaign that could be an Atlas project. And we've got goals that we want to track for launching a marketing campaign. Maybe a little bit bigger in scale. We're deprecating a whole system. We've got a series of goals that we want to track. And then I'm trying to go to the more macro level. I have an example of a music store, which I probably need to get into a different line of business. I don't even know if there are music stores anymore. So maybe that's showing my age. I used to get excited about going to Guitar Center as a kid. I think Guitar Center still exists.
I think it still exists.
I think it's there. So anyway, we may need to just maybe, as an organization, worry about just staying and keeping the lights on instead of setting these goals for upward trajectory. But anyway, I digress. But I've created this project of a music store, and really you can just fill in the blank, with your own business. A lot of these OKRs are examples that could be applicable to other industries. But this is where we're going to spend most of our time for this demonstration of Atlas, is within this particular Atlas project. And where the project, in my example, is kind of a container of goals, you could say, that a leadership team wants to tackle maybe within a 1 or 2 year period. Juxtaposed to some of the other projects that I showed you, it could be more like a 2-week period. So quick side note, while it's important, my Atlas project has goals associated with it, which we're going to get into in a moment, but it's important to note that we can also create goals autonomously from Atlas projects. Again, very wide open. You don't need to create a project. You could actually just come in here as a small team and just start creating goals. You don't have to associate them with what we're referring to as an Atlas project. So we can in summation, I guess to put that to bed, we can create high-level organizational goals or lower-level team level goals to anchor our work to with Atlas. So since we're talking about OKRs, we can create what is called, we can create goals and label them as objectives and then have key results that ultimately roll up to those objectives as sub-goals. So real quick though, before I do that, within the project view, we have an about section where we can kind of have almost this executive summary of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and ultimately what success looks like. And this can almost be a jumping off point into creating your OKRs. Maybe you have just a bulleted list. Maybe you've had an executive level meeting and you're like, okay, well, we know we want to do all this stuff. Your about section could almost be a jumping off point into creating those objectives and key results. We have an update section here where you can add updates on the project itself. You can see I've added a few here. We've got a learning section where you could put some documentation or some links to notes. Pretty simple from a UI perspective. This is where you could call out risks that you want to keep an eye on for the project decisions. Ultimately, I think you get the point. Not totally dissimilar, actually, side note, as to the decision macro within Confluence. With that, though, let's jump down to where our objectives actually live within an Atlas project. Speaking of, one of the words Jackie was referring to was collaboration. You do have the option to add contributors to an Atlas project here. So these would all be all the folks that I want to kind of have a collaborative relationship with, or at least have kind of be in the know on where this project is going and tacitly how these goals are performing. Similarly, you can have folks within your organization. Again, Atlas is everywhere. So you could have folks like developers, HR representatives follow an Atlas project and kind of be in the know on how are these goals progressing? How are we meeting our key results and objectives? And so similar to how you can follow a Jira issue, you can follow an Atlas project. It kind of keeps you in the know. Yeah. And then here are our objectives tied to this project. And so let me actually go ahead and click into one of these. So as Jackie was mentioning, we've got some numbers within our objective, which is what we want. We don't want it super vague. And very similar to our project section, we have an about section, a place where we can add updates, where this objective is ultimately tied to project-wise. You can add links to Jira issues, and literally you just copy the URL in here. Not dissimilar to what you actually see within the project section down here at the bottom, which I didn't scroll far enough down to. But this is where you get the team level work that's actually tying up to the project. Again, just kind of breaking those walls and barriers of where's the work and how is our work tying up to the goal. You can add links specifically to Jira issues down here. And very similarly, within your objectives, you can do the same thing if you want to. And then ultimately, you can score your objectives as you would want to, and you can update the status at the same time. So we've got our status here. We can say we're on track, at risk, or off track. And then to Jackie's point, we want our objectives and key results time bound. So this is where you can set either day, month, quarter kind of timeframes for your objectives. And as a side note, goal owners, just kind of upholding this idea of transparency and keeping everybody in the know and having a collaborative approach. Goal owners actually receive a monthly automated message from Atlas as a reminder to share updates to stakeholders or those that are following the goal. So again, another opportunity within the tool to create the alignment to the objective or objectives and key results that you want folks to kind of keep in touch with.
And that's so nice that people don't have to keep asking you, right?
Exactly.
They can just see it from the tool, or they get a weekly update. Or
exactly. It's just everybody knows where it is and they can jump right into it.
Yeah.
And actually, just to show you real quick, for those that might be administrating this tool, to be able to turn this off and on, you just go to these settings up here, workspace settings. And there's a few other things to be aware of back here, but just to show you, you have a simple status option. You don't actually have to have the scoring method, although I do like that a little bit more, just a higher level of granularity there.
That's great.
Yeah. So ultimately here, so I've got my objective, and then I'm using the sub-goal functionality. So everything in Atlas, not everything, but ultimately a goal is a goal within Atlas. But we do have this layer of sub-goal to parent goal relationship, which works really well, in my opinion, for linking your key results up to an objective. And so I can drill into this other goal, and in this case, flag it as a key result, and then ultimately have the nice reference of my parent goal here. Again, just like my objective, I can add updates here, link to projects, Jira, have learnings, risks, decisions, etc. And then I have the ability to flag, am I at risk? Am I off track? Etc. Just real quick, I can say, if I click on at risk, you're immediately popped into this option where you can put in a status. You can add files, videos, emojis, crying emojis at this point, probably, if you're at risk or completely off track. But this is where you can, again, kind of iteratively update these key results and objectives as much as you need to, and ultimately keep everybody in sync on how they're tracking towards achieving them. So let's go ahead and just create a new goal. And so I can do that in a couple different ways. I can be in my project here, and I can add a goal here with the plus button and search for an existing goal to link to, or create a new goal here. Or similar to Jira software or just Atlassian products as a whole, honestly, you got the create button at the top. And this is where you can create a new project, a team, give kudos, with the idea of celebrating. That's also what I really like about Atlas. It seems like a very positive, bubbly tool. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's very much like, let's go get them, guys. It has that kind of personality, kind of that golden retriever tool personality, I guess you could say. And yeah, exactly. So I like that aspect of Atlas. They've got kudos right here in the menu. But yeah, I would go into goal here, and you essentially get the same UI option that you would by clicking the plus button down here. And I confess this goal has nothing to do with a music store, but we could say, let's say we're a bank, or going back to our bank example, become the #1 free mobile banking app for developing countries.
Oh.
And wow, and if I could spell countries, that would be helpful for everybody. And to add, let's say by Q4, and then we can pick a date and kind of align with what I was talking about before. We can jump to a quarter, since we said Q4, October through December. And really, it's as easy as that. We click create, and we're immediately whisked away to our goal page, where we can add a description, we can add updates, link to projects, link to Jira issues, learning risks. It's a very, very simple tool to use. And it's honestly one of the most attractive things about it is it's just very easy to use. You don't have to think too much when you're navigating through it. And as you can see, you default to a pending status. This is where you would want to start, scoring your objective here. And you're met with the update section. You can say, yay, we're on track. And you would obviously want to say probably more than that. And then click post. And then your updates in the update section. And then you've also updated your status at the same time. One thing that we get asked about a lot, and let me go back to our project, when it comes to how just Atlassian tools in general handle metrics. And the reality is, let me go into the objective, is that there isn't any calculation functionality for your metrics within Atlas, like what you're going to see later on in Jira Align. But you can, as what I think is at least a more than sufficient workaround for the time being, is you can add fields to your objective screen. And so as we know, as Jackie mentioned, but just to kind of circle us back here, key results are measurable targets that define the success of an objective or goal, and they're typically measured in one of the following. So count, dollars, percentage, net promoter score, or a score ranging from 0 to 1. And so you can see here, we have a field where we're selecting a metric, whether it be account, percentage, currency. And then we have a metric goal that we can set here that's pretty vanilla, just a number, and then a current metric here as well. And so you're capturing data somewhat statically, to be honest. But in addition to these fields, you can also utilize the update here. So let's say more generically, our base, let's just say I'm offering an update here. Our base is 60, goal is 80, and currently we're at 65. And then you can click post. You've updated all of your teams or where you're currently standing. And again, you can post as many updates as you want here. All that being stated, again, I'm saying this as a workaround. We do expect to see some level of automated scoring getting released within Atlas at some point in the near future.
Oh.
And so this is a workaround, I would say, for now, because ultimately I think Atlassian's exploring that as an option. And it probably, I would venture a guess, it's not going to be totally dissimilar to what we'll see in Jira Align later, where we can run some, relatively complex calculations that, if it were in Jira, would manifest as a series of branch rules and create a fair amount of administrative overhead that we wouldn't want to necessarily undertake just for that piece of it. So hold on to your hats, but this is a way you can get around it, at least for now, is a workaround. And just to show you real quick, for those that might be administrating this tool later on, if I go into the settings again, just to show where you can add those fields. The administrative menu is pretty straightforward, but if you go to the fields menu here, this is where you can create fields for that project or that Atlas project level, or at the goal level. And this is where you can see our metric goal, and then current metric fields that we created just as an example. And then within the add field function, you give your field a name, and you're pretty much limited right now. Again, I would expect to see this probably expand in the future as Atlas becomes more integrated, honestly, within the Atlassian suite of tools, but you're limited to number, text, user, and or a select field there. And you can add a description. So not totally dissimilar to a custom field type within Jira.
Yeah.
With that, let me open something that I want to show you guys that I think is really neat and is ultimately a nice segue into our next piece of the discussion here.
Oh yeah, that'll be a good one.
So now that I've shown you the source of truth, where goals, quote, live in Jira, I want to show you how they can be visualized everywhere within the Atlassian suite of tools, as I've been kind of alluding to. But before I do that, I want to share a graphic that was created by our very own Brian Darr. And he found himself in the position where he was needing to explain Atlas and kind of how the data flows to our clients. Because again, folks come to us with tools like Atlas, and they're like, yeah, like it sounds good on paper. I just don't understand how I would even go about implementing this. Is this something we need to hire you guys for to implement? Is it something that we can just kind of pick up out of the box? And so Brian created this wonderful document that kind of explains how the data connects. And so work as we know it is happening down here in Jira. We've got our teams typically working at a task level or an epic level. But then work can also be happening in a spreadsheet or Trello. And an Atlas or Atlas Jira goals allow for them to be visualized, communicated, and reported on, like what we talked about, just a moment ago in Atlas. A goal can have epics and anything higher linked to it. So within Brian's diagram, just to kind of anchor us to that point, we've got an epic that is directly tied to a goal, or in this case, an objective. You could say that's an objective. Sub goals, filling in the blanks here, those would be key results. You could also have an initiative tied to a key result. So basically the takeaway there is you're able to link your team level work directly to your objectives, which is kind of what we were talking about in Jackie's presentation. You want to tie the teams to those objectives and key results at the top most layers where those are being decided. And so this diagram does a really good job of saying, well, hey, you could connect an epic directly to an objective. Typically, they're connected or would be connected to key results, though. And then you could have an initiative, tied to a key result. And we won't demonstrate this today, but you could also tie Google Sheets, like I mentioned, to a goal via a project. Perhaps a use case for this would be if you're providing weekly project updates in a Google Sheet. But the key takeaway here is just showing how the work can happen here. The goal setting can happen up here at maybe the leadership or executive level, but we have all this opportunity to connect the tools to one another and have that visibility.
And that's what I love about this diagram, because I think that's something that I know I get asked a lot.
Mm-hmm.
How does this differ, having OKRs versus the initiative, epic, user story, hierarchy, and how do they merge together? So I love how you've diagrammed this out, because they are very much separate, but they can and should tie in, right?
100%. 100%. And actually, that's a perfect segue, Jackie, into what I was going to say next. Wow, it's almost like we planned this. We didn't actually plan that.
We did not actually plan
that.
The rest of it, somewhat.
Yeah, rest of it definitely somewhat. So now that you've seen an overview of how that data is connected in the diagram, I've created an advanced roadmaps plan that I think further highlights where we can tie goals in and see them, tied into that team level work. And then we'll drill into individual tasks that teams are working on, or epics that teams are working on, and still see that continuity of everything tying up to the objective, or hopefully you'll see that. So let me go over to my plan here. So in addition to your leadership team using Atlas to create goals, it's possible that they might have some kind of roadmap view, planning view like this within advanced roadmaps to track work that's rolling up to an epic or initiative layer. You may also have teams that use plans. We've seen that a lot, where folks are at the team level and they're using plans. But in the case of this example, what I really want to highlight, and hopefully dovetails with what Jackie was sharing, is that we have all kinds of teams represented within this plan. We have a customer experience and retail operations team using a Jira work management project. We have a data and technology team using, so fill in the blank there, it would be like a dev team that's working and living under this project. Just to highlight that, we've got tasks kind of generically tied to parent issues up here, but then we have user stories that are tied to epics, and I'll drill into one of these later on, but ultimately this is a team working in sprints. So you have a dev team that's working in sprints tied up with an experience and retail operations team, totally different world. Same thing with employee engagement and development. You have an HR team within a plan. Nice. And what I'll highlight, and what you've probably already noticed, all of this work is getting tied to our key results right here within this one view. Same thing down here, product and inventory management, tied to key results 1 and 2 here. Sales and marketing, tied to our key results here at the task level or parent task level. Now, some of you probably recognize this logo. Sales and marketing aren't going to be using epics, but basically I just used a very simple issue hierarchy to say whether it's an epic or whatever parent issue type you're using to maybe organize your work at the task level rolling up. The point is you can roll up to whatever you want, and ultimately the work can still be tied back to the key results. So as an executive, I would get excited, or at least I would potentially think I would get excited about this view, because I can see I have totally different teams in totally different spheres of the company, all working wherever they need to work. And it's all tying up to our key results here. And so I get excited about this because, or at least executives would probably get excited about this because we can say, somebody over in marketing is doing this, but it's towards achieving this key result here. But then also our devs are over here completing user stories and sprints, working in a completely different manner. But again, it's all tied up to that key result.
Absolutely.
And so what's nice, again, just to kind of tie this up, we can see all the layers of work wherever it's happening. And then on this view, actually, I can just run my mouse over the key result itself and see a summary of where it's at. So whether I'm a team or an executive team that's using this particular view, I can drill right into the key result itself. And then I can open a preview of it. And this one isn't super filled out, but that's where I would have the about section. Any updates that are happening there, I can see right within the roadmaps plan. And I use the roadmaps plan just as a vehicle to really show you guys, this isn't necessarily how you have to work or realize key results, but it's more the power of showing you how key results and goals are just interwoven into almost every product within the Atlassian suite of tools. So with that, let me actually drill into one of these specific issues and just, again, further highlighting how we're tying all these teams up to our objectives. So let me go down to our sales and marketing team. So they've got a few different epics that they're working on. Again, epic, fill in the blank with, parent issue of choice. Don't get hung up on epic. But ultimately, if I drill into this parent issue that has some tasks under it, I just want to highlight, this isn't a development team. They're using a Jira work management project. They've got some child issues where they're training sales staff on upselling techniques. They're launching a campaign. And this team is using Jira, but then we have our goals right here where the work is being done by the team. It makes them feel like their work, I would hope, is more valuable, is ultimately aligning to those objectives and key results, or ultimately to the objective, but to these key results. And then we have our key results that are hopefully well-defined and understandable by our team members, and they're able to see a status of those. And assuming they have access to it, you can actually jump right out to Atlas and take a look at the key results right here within the UI. Let's jump to another team here, employee engagement. So this would be more on the HR side. Again, not a development project, a Jira work management project. But if I jump into where the HR team is wanting to improve training programs, well, how does that working, or how as an organization are we interacting or tying up to this key result? Well, we can see here, we've envisioned our team by tying that key result right into the work that they're doing right now. And so while they're working on designing a quarterly training curriculum, which could be mundane and difficult, I don't know, I've never done it, they would feel hopefully the purpose of knowing, hey, like we're actually doing this for a very good reason. We want to ensure 100% of our staff complete quarterly training sessions on product knowledge and sales techniques. And ultimately just anchoring us back to Atlas, that is feeding into our parent objective of strengthening our employee training and engagement. And then last but certainly not least, I want to drill into a totally different project, our data and technology project, where we have a team that's working in sprints. We have some user stories that are rolling up to epics. Same story if I go into the epic here. Got a few more field options just because it's a dev team and it's a different look and feel, ultimately due to the project or the nature of the project that we've built here. But again, my dev teams are linked up to a key result here, reducing stockouts and overstock by 20%. Totally different world. Developers, typically, at least in my experience, aren't super interested in the business side of things, but at the same time, I'm setting up automated inventory and a forecasting tool, and that's ultimately feeding into this key result of reducing stockouts and overstock. It just gives me a little pep in my step, so to speak, of knowing what I'm doing and how it's feeding into ultimately as an organization what we are really trying to accomplish. I think it's kind of cool.
Right?
Yeah.
And I like how you're showing it across all the teams, not just, yes, dev teams are in Jira, so there you go.
Exactly. And that's, I think, ultimately what I love about Atlas is it kind of breaks down the barriers and ultimately I feel like opens our clients' eyes to possibilities of like getting out of the mindset of where Jira started, which is just for dev teams. And it really isn't anymore. It's much, much broader in scope and offering for all these teams that are working in it.
Yeah. I like how you showed the HR team. I feel like we're seeing more and more HR teams move into it.
100%.
It's such a good vehicle for keeping track of everything you need to do and tying it back.
100%. Yep, absolutely. Okay. So in conclusion, I've hoped that I've driven home the point that Atlassian is really the goal solution within the Atlassian suite of tools. And it's if it hasn't already, it's rolling out to essentially everyone. So it's there. And we expect Atlassian to really spend some time developing this product. It's not going away. And ultimately, it does a lot of things very well in the realm of just goal setting. And then, as you can see, kind of keeping everything interwoven and connected via goals. It's kind of exciting stuff. Okay, well, with that, let's go ahead and pivot to a totally different world in my mind, and that's the wonderful world of Jira Align. And I'm not saying that sarcastically. I'm not. It is just a whole different animal. But with that, if you're not familiar with Jira Align, I just want to provide just a brief overview of what it is. So Jira and Jira Align have similar names. But they are truly, and I can't emphasize this enough, two different tools that actually integrate and sync with one another. So you could say they're almost autonomous of one another in their own right until you integrate them. They have two different URLs, two different interfaces. And while they have similar purposes, there are some differences between them. And some, I should actually probably emphasize, a lot of differences between them. Jira software has some great modules, as we know, that help Kanban and Scrum Agile teams plan, execute, report on their work, etc. We know this. However, organizations moving up the layers in scale above the feature level, like in the program, solution, portfolio, and enterprise layers, may find that they need the ability to conduct long-term planning across the enterprise. And that's where Jira Align really comes in. So if those are all buzzwords for you and you see your organization going that way, you may just want to look at Jira Align as a whole, as a potential option. Jira is really at the team level, and we really, just to kind of tie it up in a nice bow, we really start seeing Jira Align being used at the program level. So in conclusion, it's a massive tool. We won't cover it even anywhere close in its entirety during this demonstration. But if you want to know more about it, we have a Jira Align introduction webinar that I encourage you to attend. It's very, very informative, really gets you going if you're interested in the tool itself. And we can share a link for the next one that's coming up in the chat at some point during our presentation today. What I do want to cover here, though, is where and how OKRs are used within Jira Align. So we're in what's called the strategy room view, as you can surmise by the title here. And to that end, we see OKRs being used across the layers of scale that I just referenced previously. Within the tool, you may have executives more interested in a high-level view of OKRs and their statuses across the organization. And this is where the strategy room view that we're in now at the enterprise layer, just to kind of anchor us to where we're at now, may be the most helpful to them. OKRs can be associated with strategies, goals, and themes, for example, but all goal layers can be treated as OKRs when key results are attached. The portfolio and program objectives with key results are rolled up by PI in the strategy room where we're at right now. I'm going to scroll down here to the OKR heat map. And the average score that you see here in the heat map is displayed to kind of give us an overall sense of health throughout the organization with regard to how the organization is performing against hitting its objectives. And then if I open one of the OKRs down here, let me click on portfolio objectives within our strategy pyramid here. And then if I go to, let's go to this second one here. Here's an example of an OKR within Jira Align. So much more complex user interface here, as you can see, juxtaposed to Atlas. And let's just go through each section real briefly. We have a summary that's not totally dissimilar to like an issue summary, if you're familiar with Jira. We've got our description. And then you have some key results examples down here as well. Continuously monitor and optimize search capabilities to ensure ongoing improvement and user satisfaction. We have our current count, our goal count, and then our baseline here. We've got our rule owner. We've got a due date to kind of time box it. And then down here at the bottom, you've got a report section here that you can kind of look at some key reporting data there right here within the UI. And then you also have the ability to check in. So not totally dissimilar to what we saw in Atlas with the update functionality, or whenever we rescore or kind of update, are we on track, off track, etc. This is kind of a similar functionality here where you can add a count and a note for the value update as well. So let me go back to the heat map just ever so quickly here. And let's go to our strategy room. Oh my goodness. I think that's where I want to go.
I know, they changed the name.
I know, they've changed everything on me. What is going on in here?
You know what? I don't think I ever sit through a demo where, at least we don't say that once, so right? We're like,
yes,
that's new.
Right. What is going on? They're changing everything on me. Okay, we're back. If we look at the heat map again, hopefully that makes some more sense now that I've given you some more context for the structure of the OKR there and the key results. Each row contains blocks to reflect statistics for objectives at the strategic goal or objective level. Strategic goals display as a single block because they aren't associated with PIs juxtaposed to objectives, which are sorted by PI in separate columns, which you kind of see up here at the top. And then each block displays the average percentage of progress made on the key results at the strategic goal or objective level. So for strategic goal blocks, the percentage isn't PI specific. For the PI specific objective blocks, progress is only calculated for the key results of the objectives at the specified level that are associated with the PI. Let's go down to the OKR tree here at the bottom. I want to talk about this for a moment. So the OKR tree may also be helpful in that it shows how all of your objectives and goals roll up to a defined strategy view. And you can click on what's kind of nice, actually, just as a quick side note, and you probably witnessed it, within the strategy room view, there's just a ton of links everywhere. You can interact with the pyramid as you saw me earlier do when I drilled into the portfolio objectives. You could do the same thing on the OKR heat map, and then the OKR tree is no exception. You can drill right into specific objectives here. So with that, let's drill into kind of the program level here. So I'm going to go to program here at the top, and then I'm going to search for website services. And then I'm going to look at a specific program increment here. And then click apply. Okay. So moving to a more detailed layer like the program room, I want to demonstrate creating an OKR in Jira Align. And then I'd also like to discuss kind of OKRs on the program level where we're at now. So let's go ahead and look at the program board, and we can do that by navigating on the left pane here. And within the program board, we can see the team and program objectives tied to their respective PIs here. And if I run my mouse over one of them, I can see the sprints that are associated with them, with the objectives rather. The color of the objective denotes the potential for planning errors. And so if I click into one of the objectives, I get a little bit more insight as to what's going on there. And I've got a description. I've got the planning issues called out here and what may be going on. I've got some features that are tied to it, dependencies, risks, etc. Let's go to the objective tree now on the left side of the pane and drill over to there. And I actually really like this view because it feels more like home from a UI perspective. It feels more like Jira as a whole. And that's not a critique of Jira Align. It's just using both tools. Jira Align felt always a little bit different, kind of from a look and feel standpoint. And so I really like, just as a side note, for whatever it's worth, the consolidation of the UI into kind of more of an Atlassian feel. And this section is no exception here. So this is where we can view OKRs in more detail, and then also create one, which I promise I'll do in a moment. So in the UI, the OKR hub presents similarly to, like I said, to a board that we see kind of in a Jira software project. And then we've got different filters that we can interact with. So we only got 4 objectives here, but let's say we had much more than that. That's where the filtering functionality becomes a lot more helpful. We've got our goal tier that we can manipulate, our objective tier. We can change what program we're looking at. We can look at specific or filter by specific PIs. If we have some search terms that we want to just kind of give a shot to, we can search here. We can search by status. So again, very similar to what we saw in Atlas with at risk, on track, off track. We can search by owner, or we can filter only by our own objectives. So again, not dissimilar to a board within Jira where we want to look at only issues assigned to us. Very similar functionality where we can look at objectives that are assigned to us as well. And then we have these nice colorful quick filters where we can look at just objectives that are off track, at risk, on track, etc., or completed. Let's take a look at this second OKR. And the main reason I want to do this is just to highlight, from a UI perspective, it's exactly the same of what we saw in the strategy room. So there's some continuity of functionality there, which is nice. And let's go ahead. We already went over all these sections here. Let's go ahead and actually go through what it looks like to create an OKR here. I'm going to close this. And just like everything within Jira, we have the wonderful blue create button at the top that we can interact with to do this. Very different though within Jira Align, as you would expect, juxtaposed to Jira. We have a bunch of different options here, but in this case, we want to select objective. And then I'm whisked away to what I've been kind of calling just the OKR wizard, so to speak. And so we'll click create OKR. And it really just kind of walks you through the process here. So I'm going to kind of fill things in here. We'll say we want to be at the program level. We're on website services, I believe. Again, can't spell website today for some reason. So sorry, folks. I don't get paid to spell though. So there you go. Or at least AI does that for me. And maybe that's what's making me worse as time goes on. Anyway, I digress. But let's say our summary is going to be reach meaningful. Well, I'm not going to lie. You guys see this. We'll just do autofill to save you guys some frustration of watching me fumble through typing. We want to reach meaningful scale by achieving 5,000 software subscriptions per month. Love it. That's great. Click our check mark. And then we've got our description. I'm just going to copy in essentially the same thing, but this is where you could obviously put in whatever you want here. And then you have all kinds of options here to format the text, as we see often within Jira. We'll click save. And then we want to schedule it. We're going to say this program increment. We've got our reporter. This is where I could change it to somebody else. And then I can add key contributors. Let's see if Jackie's in here. I don't know if you're in here, Jackie.
I don't think I am.
Let's try Bonnie.
Yeah, good choice.
And let's see. Yeah, that's fine. We'll add a couple others here. Adam Smith. I don't think he works here. I've never seen him before. That's all right.
But now he's going to know.
But he's here now. Yeah, he's going to be working now. And then we want to, what parent objective does this align with? And that's where we could select a parent if we want to here as well. And we'll leave that blank for now. And then this is where we want to add our key results. And so kind of similar to like a subtask menu, I keep thinking of that when I look at this within Jira. It's just a very simple add a key result option. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to click copy some of these in, or at least examples that could work. And then we've got our key result type of percentage, count, cost, currency, net promoter score, just generically score. In this case, I'll go ahead and select Net Promoter Score. And then now we have the option to set our baseline NPS rather. So let's say 90. Our goal is 100. And then we've got a due date to target, as we do want a time box, our KRs. That's probably a bit aggressive on that KR. We'll just pop it out a little bit. And then we're good there. And then we can click publish here, or after we click align work items. And so we've got our objective here, got our key results. This is where we could add a feature if we wanted to. And then we can click publish. Excellent. And then we've got our objective and then ultimately our key result here. And just wanted to show, if I update the KR here, I can do check-in. And then let's say I've got a Net Promoter Score of 93. Got some notes updating this. And then if I click update, you can see that I've got a previous update mentioned here of where the update occurred. And then what's really neat is you have all the math that's going on in the background to update your objective score as a result of updating your key result. Again, I get excited when I see this because there are rumors floating around that this functionality may be rolled into Atlas, like I mentioned earlier, which would be really, really cool and ultimately makes Atlas very powerful very quickly. So kind of to sum things up with what I've showed you guys today, I would say that Atlas is going to be your go-to goal creating solution within the Atlassian suite of tools more often than not. If you're agile and you're mature in agile practices and you're already within Jira Line, it's a no-brainer to use the OKR Hub. It's there, it's available, it's very robust. It just makes sense to use it. I would be shocked if you had Jira Line and you weren't using it. But for most of us, I have to drive home the point that Atlas is really going to be the solution. As I alluded to when I started off the presentation, there are other options. I have seen folks create an objective issue type on a board and then have kind of child key result issue types leverage a parent to child relationship and kind of use a software project. To me, it feels somewhat like an antiquated solution at this point, just with how much Atlas is kind of ramped up. And then just honestly, just how you've seen within the UI, how they've just so beautifully interwoven goals across the, the product set that it just doesn't make much sense to me, at least at this current juncture, to use or create objectives and key results, like in a board, for example. Similarly, though, just a quick note, there is an OKR template within Confluence, which could get you there. I could see this more and more being used for maybe you're having a meeting about OKRs and it's more to capture notes. I don't know if I would particularly use it for kind of day in and day out tracking of OKRs because it's not super dynamic. Yeah. It's all text-based. Again, not bashing it, but just saying it is out here available for you guys to use. Although, again, further highlighting that goals just kind of live everywhere in Jira now. If I copy one of my objectives here, let's say that this was the same objective that I'm taking notes on within Confluence, you can copy a goal link right within Confluence and immediately see it transformed and ultimately pointing back to Atlas. And so I just wanted to bring this up, even if you aren't using the OKR template within Confluence, if you're taking notes, if you're having team meetings, whether it be at the executive or leadership level or at, say the level of a developer working on a feature or something along those lines, another opportunity to tie those meeting notes, the work that's going on, whether it's in Confluence, Jira work management projects, it can all be tied back to goals and objectives at the topmost layer. So just wanted to mention that as well.
It certainly has its place, even if it's not the primary vehicle you use to keep track of your OKRs.
Right.
And like you said, with Atlas being rolled out just with Jira software, why wouldn't you use it, right? I mean,
Exactly. 100%. And it's out there for everybody to use. Why not use it?
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Yeah.
and it disappeared.
And we went dark.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, let's see. Oh, okay. It's going to start us off the beginning. Bear with us, folks.
Well, maybe it's a good time for Brianna to give something.
Yeah,
else
I was going to
away.
say, Brianna, is it another time for a giveaway?
Thank you, guys. Before we get into it, I did have a little question during the presentation asking what the Ray-Bans look like. So lucky for you guys, I do have some with me. So they will be coming in this beautiful leather case. And here we've got our Ray-Bans. These beautiful Ray-Bans. And you can see the little Valiantis logo etched in there.
Ooh.
So with that, let's see who won our second pair today. Drum roll, please. Keep an eye out for an email from me on how to get your prize. With that, I do know we have quite a few questions in our Q&A chat. Sam and Jackie, are you guys ready to tackle some of those?
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Yeah, and apologies. I just got kind of plugging away here in my presentation, but hopefully I've answered some of these. So yes, really great question. We had a question about Atlas being a cloud solution. It is a cloud-only solution. That's something I should have mentioned on the outset. It's not available in server or data center. So if this is something attractive to you, you do have to be on cloud to leverage it. Is Atlas an additional cost in addition to Jira Service Desk? I believe Atlas, and we can check on this and maybe answer after the call. I believe Atlas is getting rolled out to everybody at the standard tier, regardless. So whether you want it or not, it's going to be there. I guess is what I'm saying. And so you can absolutely use it. I believe if you are only using Jira Service Desk or Jira Software, but I don't believe there's any additional cost, but we can definitely, I'll hold on to that question because I want to make sure I'm not giving you misinformation there. Yeah, and then we had another question that hopefully I answered just now, that Atlas is being connected, or can Atlas be connected to Jira and Confluence? 100%, just everything that we were talking about. And that is truly its biggest strength, in my opinion, is that you're able to link to objectives or goals just in general within Confluence, like I showed you. You can add goals directly at the issue level. Again, just remembering that that's going to be at the epic level and above, just hierarchically speaking. So keep that in mind. You're not going to see goals at the task level, but they are going to be at that epic level and above. So if you had an initiative layer above epic or a theme layer above initiative, you could hypothetically tie goals to both of those layers as well.
And I can probably jump in on the next one,
yeah,
if helpful. So there's a question here about what about KPIs? When it depends. So the answer that I always have to say when we're talking about Jira is, I'm sure there's a lot of plugins out there that are great that will give you a lot of options if you want to do something more robust. I usually direct clients, if they're talking about KPIs associated with an initiative or a project, whatever the KPI that they want to track, I tell them to oftentimes just create them as a custom field, because these are static KPIs we want to track throughout all of our projects. Like we were talking about, if it's ROI or cost or whatever. If you're talking about on a team level, my go-to is Confluence, where we keep track of it week over week, depending on the KPI that we're tracking from a team. But again, always have to say, I'm sure if you're looking for something a little more built out, so many plugins out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's another question. Is there a way to send an update an email on a regular cadence? So as of right now, I believe it's mainly automated kind of behind the scenes. I went back into the work settings within Atlas. You can see here, you set your time zone, but basically there's a weekly project and then also monthly goal update email that kind of comes out. So for example, in my test instances, even though I'm not using them, in any kind of way for business right now, just for demoing, I get a weekly reminder of, hey, make sure you communicate out to the group with how you're tracking towards your goals. So there's the weekly and the monthly that just automatically kind of baked into the tool. Does it have a dashboard to view all the statuses? In a manner of speaking, if we go back out to the project, kind of what I was mentioning earlier, the project is kind of almost your de facto dashboard for how everything is going with all of your goals that are kind of tracking against your project. So you could almost think of kind of like what I mentioned when I was demonstrating as your project kind of being your dashboard in a lot of ways, for keeping track of your goals and whether or not they're on track. It'd be interesting. That's actually an intriguing question because of course, my mind's racing off into, well, if there's a dashboard within, Jira, is there any opportunity to view goals within a dashboard? And honestly, I could see them if they don't exist already. And forgive me for not knowing this, but having some kind of gadget that you could put on a dashboard that would allow to view goals that may already exist. And I'm just not aware of it, but that's an interesting thought.
I just built a dashboard not too long ago,
Mhm.
and this means little coming from me, but I don't recall seeing it.
Yeah, right. But potentially down the road,
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, for sure.
How come an epic has two statuses at the same time? I think that question is with regards to what you saw on the plan itself, where we have two key results tied to one epic. And so that's a really good question, but we could essentially say that some of our work may be working towards either directly or indirectly. And I would defer to you, more on this, Jackie, but I think it would be possible to have, our teamwork that is really feeding into two different key results. I mean,
Yeah.
don't you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is a great question. And this is where I think it gets a little confusing. Why I think that diagram you showed was so helpful, because we're talking about two separate hierarchies. So exactly what you're seeing, you can have a single epic, a single initiative tied to a couple of different goals. And those goals may be on track or off track totally on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, very, very good. Can this plan cross Jira instances within an enterprise? Great question. So no, this plan is going to be specific to this tenant of Jira. However, if you're interested in kind of reporting across the enterprise, I strongly encourage you to look into Atlassian Analytics or reach out to us about Atlassian Analytics. That's where you get the opportunity to look kind of cross org, at least organizationally speaking within Jira. But it is within the one site, so to speak, within this URL that you're kind of limited to within the advanced roadmaps plan.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
We've got a thank you for the Ray-Bans. You're absolutely welcome. Congrats, James. Yeah, James, that's a really good question too. So as Jira Line, usually for organizations more than 500 developers, that's fair. Atlassian or Jira Line is for much larger organizations who are much more mature in kind of their agile practices. I would say that safely. And there was a time where, companies would have to kind of almost go through an interview process just to see if it's even a tool that you should buy. And so, yes, I would say that's very much accurate, at least in our experience with the implementations that we've done. Yeah, great question. Very interesting question. What type of permission schemes are associated with Atlas? So there isn't an idea of a permission scheme in Atlas yet. It's very, very wide open. And I think that's ultimately intended kind of for all the things that we're talking about. We want everybody to kind of have access to what are we doing as an organization? And so kind of harkening back to what I was saying about Atlas in general, it's just very, very wide open in its framework. And there's not really this idea of a permission scheme associated with Atlas where you can kind of permission things similarly to what you would do in a Jira project.
Yeah.
And I think that's its strength,
Right.
ultimately, is what I'm trying to say.
Right, absolutely.
Okay. And then we had a question about metrics. Yeah, with metrics in general, it's kind of what we were talking about in Atlas, and I would say Jira Line and Atlas are differ greatly with measuring metrics. But ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, in Atlas, metrics are pretty static in the sense of we can just kind of put information into text fields for now. But we do expect to see, as I mentioned, that calculation functionality, hopefully at some point in the near future, rolling out to Atlas.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Well, I think if there are no other questions, Brianna, is there anything you're seeing that I'm not?
No, I think you guys got all of them.
Okay,
Awesome.
excellent.
Perfect.
Well, sorry, let me go back to our, all right. Do you have, first of all, I'm sorry, am I on the right slide? And do you have something to share with everyone?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, this is perfect. So we have an upcoming event on September 26th, as you'll see, from 1 to 3 p.m., transforming HR teams and integrating Atlassian tools. So similar to this event, you'd be receiving a copy of Getting Things Done by David Allen. So the QR code is on the screen. If you guys are interested in joining us for this event, definitely feel free to come by. You don't have to be an HR professional. There's definitely going to be content covered that can translate across many different business teams. So feel free to stop by, and we'd love to see you guys there.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everyone, for the attention
Absolutely.
and the questions. We love talking about this,
Yeah.
so thank you for your time. And as Brianna's already said, if you have any questions, any follow-ups, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd always love to hear from you anytime. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day.
Absolutely. Great being with you guys. Thank you for your time.
Take care.
Bye-bye.